All right, so we're diving into this pre-market playbook for January 8th, 2025. Want to make sure everyone listening can, actually use this to figure out what's what.
It can get pretty dense. We're going to
Mm,
try to unpack it all so you can make some, hopefully, smart moves today.
exactly. We're using this pre-market playbook as our guide, so let's jump right in. First up, S&P 500 futures, kind of flat, slightly up, not exactly a huge surge. What's that tell us about the mood, you think?
Hmm. Well, it could mean a few things, right?
Yeah.
But I'd say for now, it's like cautious optimism.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite ready to go full bull market just yet.
Earnings season starting. Probably got everyone a little on edge, huh?
Yeah, I think that's playing a role for sure. Makes sense to be a bit cautious at this point.
All right, fair enough. But hey, speaking of optimism, can we just talk about Nvidia for a second? They're killing it after CES. New GPUs, and get this, a personal AI supercomputer for like 3,000 bucks. Crazy, right?
Yeah, it's wild. And they're
Mhm.
really positioning themselves at the forefront of, well, everything AI. This isn't just about better graphics for gamers anymore.
It's like the future is here now.
Pretty much. And the thing is, NVIDIA's innovations, those are going to have a ripple effect. Think self-driving cars, better healthcare, the whole 9 yards.
So everyone listening, even if you're not a hardcore tech person, this AI stuff, it's a big deal. Pay attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going to impact all our lives and, by extension, our portfolios, right? Got to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so we've got cautious optimism in the broader market, a potential AI explosion brewing. Now let's talk crypto. MicroStrategy's in the news with this insane, like, $650 price target. That's gotta be, what, the most bullish Bitcoin prediction ever? What's the deal with that?
Well, what's fascinating about MicroStrategy is they're not just buying Bitcoin, they're being really strategic about it.
Hmm.
Issuing preferred stock to raise capital, that kind of thing.
So it's not just a gamble on Bitcoin, it's actually smart maneuvering.
Right. And it's getting attention, not just from the crypto crowd, but from like serious investors who are looking for ways to diversify.
Makes sense. And it's not just them, even smaller companies. Like, I saw Hoth Therapeutics is starting to explore Bitcoin too. Is this going to be a thing, do you think?
Could be. Companies are always looking for ways to, hedge against risk, spread their bets. And Bitcoin, it's starting to look more and more attractive, especially with its potential for growth.
Okay, so we've got AI taking off, crypto becoming more mainstream. But hey, let's not forget, earnings season is officially here. Plus, we've got the JOLTS report and the ISM Services PMI coming out today.
Yeah, big day for data.
Yeah?
Lots to unpack there.
Yeah, definitely a lot of data coming at us. And that often means, the market could get a little jumpy.
Right, volatility. Fun times.
Exactly. So I think it's worth taking a minute to explain why these reports matter, especially for those of you who are maybe newer to investing.
Yeah, break it down for us. What are we watching for specifically?
So the JOLTS report, that one basically tells us how many job openings there are across the U.S.
Right. And why do we care about that?
Yeah.
Well, a strong report usually means a healthy labor market. More people with jobs, more people spending money.
Okay, so good for the economy overall.
Yeah, and specifically for retail stocks.
Yeah.
Think about it. More jobs, more people buying stuff. Those gadgets from all those tech companies riding that AI wave we were talking about.
Makes sense. So JOLTS, that's kind of like a big picture economic indicator. What about the ISM Services PMI? What's that all about?
That one focuses more specifically on the services sector, which is a huge part of the U.S. economy.
Right.
And a strong PMI reading there usually means, continued economic growth, which is generally good news for stocks,
Yeah.
especially those in the tech sector.
Especially the ones that make money from services.
Yeah, exactly.
So keep an eye on those reports. They can give us some clues about where things are headed. Now, I know what everyone's waiting for the stock picks. Our playbook has a bunch, but let's focus on the ones that are most relevant for our listeners, those who are still learning the ropes.
Sure, let's do that. So first up, we got to talk about Nvidia again. I mean, they're trading near all-time highs after CES, but the interesting thing is some analysts are actually getting a little nervous. They're worried about a potential correction.
Ah, so even with record highs, there's always that risk.
Always. It's a bit of a balancing act. So what the playbook highlights is, let me see, $529.
Yeah.
They say that's a key level to watch, a resistance level.
Meaning what exactly?
Basically, if Nvidia can break above that price and do it with strong volume, that could signal a continued upward trend.
So if you're bullish on AI and you think Nvidia can power through that resistance, it might be a good buy.
Potentially, yeah. But always got to remember, nothing's guaranteed in the market.
Right. Risk and reward. Okay, next up, MicroStrategy. They're doing their whole Bitcoin thing and using some pretty clever financing to do it. Could this be a winner?
Well, the playbook points to $370 as a support level. Think of it like a floor. If the stock stays above that, it could keep climbing towards that 650 price target.
Which would be huge, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt. And what I find interesting is that they're not just riding the Bitcoin wave, they're actually managing their finances in a way that, you know, minimizes risk.
So it's not just about betting on Bitcoin, it's about like being smart about it.
Exactly.
Okay, now this next one, this is for all the pet lovers out there, Chewy. It seems like everyone's spoiling their furry friends these days. Is this a stock that could like fetch some serious returns?
A lot of analysts seem to think so. They're predicting a potential upside of like 50%,
Huh?
which is pretty impressive.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So the key level to watch here is $40. That's a resistance level. If Chewy breaks above that, it could trigger, a surge of buying activity.
All right, so if you believe the whole like pet pampering trend is going to keep going, Chewy might be worth a look.
Definitely something to consider.
Last but not least, we got to talk about Tesla. They've had a bit of a bumpy ride lately, but could this be a good time to buy? What's the playbook saying?
Well, Tesla's always a bit of a roller coaster, right? It's a volatile stock, but that can sometimes create opportunities.
High risk, high reward kind of thing.
Exactly. So the playbook says $400 is a critical support level. If it holds above that, we could see a rebound.
Okay, so for those who are a little more risk tolerant, Tesla might be tempting. But what about all the, the investigations into their self-driving tech, the geopolitical stuff they're dealing with? Aren't those big concerns?
Yeah, for sure. There are definitely risks. I mean, they're under a lot of scrutiny, and the whole global landscape is making things more complex. It's definitely not a stock for everyone.
Not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
Right. But for those who, believe in Tesla's long-term vision and can handle the ups and downs, it might be worth considering.
Okay, so we've covered some big names in tech, retail, even crypto. Now, for those who are feeling a bit more adventurous, let's talk biotech.
All right, let's dive into that world. So biotech, it's known for its, its potential for big wins, but also big losses.
High risk, high reward, like you were saying.
Right. And the playbook highlights two companies specifically, Hoth Therapeutics and IMRX.
Okay, so Hoth Therapeutics, ticker symbol HOCE, they're working on treatments for skin conditions, right? What's the story there?
Yeah, they're developing some promising treatments, and they just announced positive results from a phase 2A trial, which is good news.
Okay.
But they're also dealing with potential dilution of their shares, which could, put some downward pressure on the stock price.
So good news and bad news, kind of mixed bag.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The key level to watch here is 1.75. If they can get above that, it could be a sign that, things are moving in the right direction.
All right, so for those of you interested in the biotech space, Hoth is one to keep an eye on. And what about IMRX? They're also known as Immuneering, right?
That's right.
They're working on cancer treatments, and their stock's already up quite a bit pre-market.
Yeah, they've been getting a lot of attention lately. Their recent phase 2A data, the interim data, it's showing some really promising results. So the playbook, they're saying watch 4.60 as a resistance level and 4.3 as support.
Okay, so a lot of potential upside, but also like a lot of potential for things to go the other way.
Yeah, definitely a volatile one. Got to be careful with that one.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, we got to talk about the risks. Investing, it's never a sure thing. And our playbook, it doesn't shy away from that. What are some of the things that could, throw a wrench in our plans today?
Well, there are always risks, right? And the playbook, they highlight three main ones. First, valuation concerns. Some analysts are worried that stock prices, especially in tech, are getting a little ahead of themselves. If earnings don't meet expectations, we could see a correction.
So maybe not all sunshine and rainbows.
Right, exactly. Got to be realistic. The second risk is regulatory and geopolitical pressure. We already talked about Tesla, but the playbook also mentions like the U.S. cracking down on some Chinese companies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that can definitely create some uncertainty.
Absolutely. And then the third risk, well, it's volatility itself. The playbook mentions high options activity around Nvidia, Tesla, some of those biotech stocks we talked about. And that usually means traders are expecting big price swings, which can be good if you're on the right side of the trade, but also, potentially bad if you're not.
So how do we navigate all of this? How do we actually make smart decisions when there's so much going on?
Well, that's where strategy comes in. The playbook talks about different approaches for different types of investors. Day traders, the ones who are, in and out of positions quickly, they might focus on those high volatility stocks like Nvidia, the biotechs, things like that. Swing traders, those who hold positions for a few days or weeks, they might look for breakout opportunities, maybe in stocks like Nvidia, MicroStrategy. And then long-term investors, they might consider buying dips in those strong companies like, Nvidia or Tesla, even if there's some short-term volatility.
So it sounds like the key is to know yourself as an investor, figure out your risk tolerance, your goals, and then choose a strategy that fits.
Exactly. And always remember, staying informed is crucial. Watch those key levels we talked about, pay attention to the news, those economic data releases, and never stop learning. The market, it's always changing.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, feeling like we've got a pretty good handle on this pre-market landscape.
Yeah, definitely a lot to digest.
Before we wrap things up, though, want to try to zoom out a bit,
Yeah.
big picture stuff. What are the big takeaways here? What should people be thinking about as they're, actually making decisions today?
Well, the market's in a weird spot, right? You've got this, cautious optimism, but also, some real risks lurking underneath.
Not to mention all the crazy stuff happening in the world, AI exploding, geopolitics getting all shaken up. It's like, how do you even keep track of it all?
Right. And that's the thing. It's not just about the numbers. It's about understanding the forces that are, actually driving the market.
Yeah.
The big trends that are going to shape the future.
So for our listeners, how do they cut through the noise? Where should they be focusing their attention?
I think it comes back to, connecting these broader trends to your own personal goals. If you're all in on AI, then companies like Nvidia, those are the ones to watch. If you believe in Bitcoin long-term, then maybe MicroStrategy makes sense for you.
And obviously, risk tolerance is huge.
Right.
Comfortable with some volatility, maybe some of those biotech plays are interesting. But if you're looking for something a bit more, stable, maybe stick with the big names like Nvidia, Tesla, something like that.
Exactly. And don't forget about the economic data. Those reports we talked about, the JOLTS, the ISM Services PMI, those can give you a really good sense of, the overall health of the economy, which is always important.
Right. Got to keep an eye on the big picture. So to wrap it all up, stay informed, be smart about risk, and, most importantly, be strategic. Don't just chase the hype. Think about what makes sense for you, for your long-term goals.
I'm going to said it better myself. And remember, this is just the pre-market. The real fun starts when the market opens. So stay sharp, keep learning, and make those decisions count.
Well said. And that's a wrap on our pre-market deep dive for January 8th, 2025. Hope you all learned something. Stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, happy investing.